If you've been a fan of the channel for a while, and I hope you are, you know that I really do enjoy my NAS. I use it for a lot of different purposes, and I truly believe that a lot more people should be leveraging NAS as a great storage solution for home so that they don't have to rely on cloud solutions, paying these monthly fees, basically making yourself at the whim of these companies. They can raise their prices, they can change how you access your data, all that crazy stuff. But I do know that a lot of NAS setup can be a lot of really complicated. It can be a little bit scary for especially people who are not technically inclined. And I believe UGREEN is providing a great solution in this sector of the market where it's a very simple, easy to use NAS. It is easy to set up. It does not require a lot of knowledge on NAS technology. If you're not technically inclined, it's still an easy solution, and it's a really great way to help maybe slowly migrate your stuff away from using cloud platforms, spending all of that money over a long period of time, and investing in something like this. So, this is the DH2300. It is a 2-bay NAS system, and we're going to go through setting it up today. We're going to go through how it operates. I'm going to take a look at a bunch of different aspects, the software, the apps that you can use within it. We're going to take a look at the overall build quality, how noisy it is, whether you want to keep it in a room that you're always in, or maybe you want to keep it somewhere else. We're going to do a few speed tests, see how it compares to something like uploading a video to Google Drive, for example. And then what I'll also do is just do a cost comparison of what this could cost you in terms of the actual device itself and some drives versus a lot of these cloud solutions, and how long it would take for you to cover the cost of this with a monthly subscription or a yearly subscription to a cloud service. Without further ado, let's go ahead, get this thing open. We will get our drives installed. We'll take a look at the overall build quality of this NAS enclosure, and then we'll hop into the software. All right, so we have our UGREEN NAS sync. As mentioned, this is the DH2300. We have some features mentioned on the box here: safeguard your data, sync and backup, video library and photo organization, which is cool, remote access if you want to go ahead and set that up, scalable storage technology, so you can do up to 60 terabytes is supported in terms of the drives, so that's really cool as well. This is just kind of a repeat of all that information, and it has a theater mode so that you can watch your stuff directly off of this NAS using an app, very much similar to like a Plex or a Jellyfin. And then on the back here, it mentions up to 60 terabytes, and this is generically how much stuff you could store on 60 terabytes. All right, so here's the device. We have the top, we have the NFC logo. This is going to be important when we start doing the mobile stuff because it does have NFC on it, so that's great. We have some status lights on the bottom here. We have a USB-C port on the front. We have our power, which is great. We have some ventilation on both sides here. And then on the back, we have more ventilation. We have 2 more USB ports. These are USB 3.2 ports. We have a reset button. We have a LAN port, and this is only a 1 gig LAN port, which is a little bit disappointing. I know this is a budget device, but having a 1 gig LAN port is going to be the big bottleneck in terms of speeds here. The CPU that's in here is going to be able to handle more than a gig in terms of uploads and downloads. The drives are going to be able to handle more than that, so this is going to be our big bottleneck here. We have an HDMI port, and then we have a barrel for power. So speaking of the specs, the CPU that is in here is listed as a Rockchip RK3576 8-core CPU. And it's listed as an 8-core drive. And it's listed as an 8-core CPU on UGREEN's website. Now that is a little bit misleading because the RK3576 is technically 2 quad-core chips put together. So it's a quad-core Cortex A7 II and then a quad-core Cortex A5 III. So it is a little bit unfortunate that they're being a little bit misleading there. I know that it might be a little bit more on the technical side of things, but it does make a quite big difference when it's 2 separate 4 cores that are fused together practically instead of a singular 8-core. We have 4 gigs of LPDDR4X memory, so that's great. 4 gigs is a pretty good amount for the price range that this device falls within. We have onboard 32 gig eMMC memory for the OS, which is nice. You don't have to install an additional drive for the OS, but it also does mean that we have some limitations as to what we can do for the OS. It has 2 bay drives. We can do JBOD, basic, RAID 0, RAID 1 in terms of the storage array. We have the maximum of 60 terabytes, 2 30 terabyte drives. The HDMI is a 4K 60 Hz HDMI port. And then the USB ports, we have the USB-C on the front, which is a 5 gigabit per second port, and then the 2 USB-As on the back, which are also 5 gigabit per second ports. And it's listed at a maximum of 72 watts of power. So in the box, we're given a few other things. We're given the power brick. That's the one that does the 72 watts. We're given a screwdriver. We're given a RJ45 Ethernet cable. We have screws for installing our drives. We have a 2-year warranty card. And then we have a quick start guide and additional user instructions. Before we install our drives, let's go ahead and open this thing up. So the whole body, everything is plastic. The top is plastic. The inside is plastic. The drive caddies are also plastic, but it feels like a pretty well-built plastic system. The caddies have some really nice rubber for isolation on the bottom here. It actually feels really solid when you slide this thing in and out. Probably the best feeling like plastic caddy setup that I've seen. Then we have the interface ports for the drives as well as a fan in the bottom there. And for the drives I'm going to be putting in this, we're going to be putting in 2 Western Digital 4 terabyte WD Red Plus drives. I will leave links to these drives down in the description below if you want to check them out for yourself. These are going to be a great solution. It was just the best price per terabyte that I was currently able to find at the time of making this video. All right, since we're doing a 3.5-inch drive, we're going to be using the longer screws they provide, and they're going to go in on the sides here. All right, now that we got the drives installed into the caddies, we could just go ahead and slide them into the enclosure. And they slide in really nicely. And there we go. Disk 1, disk 2, it's labeled in here as well. And we can go ahead, plug it in, and we'll get connected. So I went on to set up the server, get it initialized. I talked about all the settings, configuration, different apps, how you can use them, different ways that you can end up utilizing the server. But all that ended up being over 40 minutes long. If you are interested in me doing a longer form video where I do go through all of that stuff, I can go ahead and put out a video like that. But today, instead, I want to focus on using it as a replacement for cloud storage for both photo and video backup, but then also just regular storage backup. So we're going to go ahead and hop on mobile. We're going to get it set up on mobile. I'm going to show how I can use it kind of to replace Google Photos. And then we'll hop onto the PC, and then I'm going to show how I'm going to use it as a backup for some of my YouTube stuff as well for all the raw footage that I do have. So let's hop into that. And here you can quickly see me using the NFC feature to quickly launch the UGREEN app. And it even goes ahead and brings up any local UGREEN NAS devices that it'll see on the network. And it makes it a super simple process to log in. All right, so here we are in the phone app. And we can see that I've already backed up a few photos. So if I go here to the photos, it's going to show me some photos that I've backed up to my UGREEN NAS already. But we can also have it set up so that it'll back up the photos on this phone automatically with a whole bunch of settings that we can configure. So we're going to go ahead and go to Photos. And then from here, we're going to go to Tools. And then I'm going to go to Photo Backup. So we're going to allow backup. Storage permissions required. So we're going to allow that. Now it's going to go ahead and scan for albums on my phone. So we'll give this a second. Okay, so it is currently backing up all photos, but we're going to go ahead and do backup all albums. We're going to unselect all of the albums. And we're just going to go ahead and back up, let's say, my camera album, and we're going to confirm that. So now it's going to rescan the albums that I selected, and it's going to back up 21 images. Now, we can also select where we want those backups to go. So if we go to Photos, Mobile Backup, you can have a separate backup per mobile device. So one of them is my main phone, one of them is my old Note 10 Plus. which is what we're currently recording on. And you can go ahead and select exactly where you want these to go. So you can separate them by phone. You can put them into the same album if you want to. You can do really whatever you want in terms of backing these up. Now we can also set up a backup time range. So unfortunately, you can't do any kind of time range like any photos older than 30 days. When you do the backup time range, it is a specific date. So if you only want to back up photos from 2018 and older, you can do that, and you can do as far back as I'll choose 1967. It'll only back up photos from there if you want. So that's great as well. And you can also do the photo sorting. So you can do it so that it'll sort by recording date, which is great as well. So in terms of some of the other settings on mobile, we can look at similar or duplicate photos. And when we go to that, we're going to have to enable the setting. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow their AI algorithm to go ahead and analyze our photos. So you have to give them permission to do that. If you don't want to give them permission to do that, you just don't get the feature. So that's an option if we want to go ahead and use it. You can also manage your shares. So if we want to, we can go ahead and share an album, or we can go ahead and share a particular photo. And I'll show you how that works in a second. And then we can also allow other people to upload into our photos. Now, this is really, really handy for things like a wedding or a vacation where you go with friends. And I often did this with Google Photos, where I would create a Google photo album, and then I would send that link to everybody and invite them as collaborators, and then they'd be allowed to upload their own photos and download photos from that album so that, everyone's got everybody's photos. It's a really nice way to kind of share photos with everyone. It's a really fun way to see photos from everyone's different perspectives. Brides and grooms have really liked it. They've set up their own, sometimes for weddings. And this is a really easy way to do that. So we'll go ahead and show that in a second as well. So let's say we're going to go ahead and this album here, we've already shared it. We're going to go ahead and do a public sharing. And I can go ahead and do a validity period. So how long it's going to be public for, where people are going to do it. I can set a password so that people have to put a password into doing stuff. And then I can allow people to download photos. So that is always great. If we want to do a friend upload, so we can do the same kind of thing. I can create the name of it. So let's say wedding 2025. And we can set a location where that's going to go. So it's going to go into its own folder. As we can see here, it's going to go to friend upload wedding 2025. We can set a file size. We can set how long they have to do this. So we can do the same thing, long term, 1 day, 3 day, 5 day, 7 day, 15 days. So that's awesome. We can do a password, and we can add it to an album if we want to. And we can create a common album for this to go into so that it also creates a photo album within our system, which is great as well. So overall, the app does a really good job in doing a lot of the stuff that Google Photos does. And I really do like the fact that it makes this as simple as possible. I could easily get my mom to install this app, get herself set up with an account, and back up all of her photos to her own photo album that I don't personally have access to unless she wants to give that to me. And she can have all of her photos backed up, maybe clear up some space on her phone, maybe get rid of some of the larger videos once she knows that they're somewhere else that they're safe, and she's good to go, right? And this does just give you a lot of those features that I would personally be using a lot of the cloud services for. And I think it'd be a good replacement for things like Google Photos, iCloud, and stuff like that in terms of the photo side. Now let's hop back over to the PC and look at ways that we can use this as a really great backup for our stuff on our computer. And here we are on the desktop client, and we can go ahead and we can open up the photos and see those photos that we just uploaded via the backup on our phone. So that's awesome. All of those things are already in here. Really happy to see that. And now if we want to, we can go ahead and back up stuff from our PC. So there are many, many ways to do this. The most simple way is just opening up our files. We can see all of our files here. So we can have our personal folder, our shared folders, and our user folder. So if I want to, I can put it in a shared folder, but let's go ahead and do a personal folder. We're going to create a new one. I'm going to call this camera backups. Gonna go ahead and open that up. No files in here. We're gonna go ahead and grab our stuff from when I did my Unraid Connect video. And I'm just gonna go ahead and drag that into here. So now it's gonna say there's duplicate named files. We're gonna go ahead and do keep. And it's gonna upload those, and we can see the progress of that here per file if we want to. So overall speed is pretty decent. You know, on the phone, it was extremely quick, but those files were quite a bit smaller. We'll see the size of this C0427. It is a 5.37 gig file. So it is going to, you know, fully saturate that gig connection. And it's not even running at that gig either. So it's going to take a little bit, but it shouldn't take too long. And it's all done. And now we can see all of those files in here. And we can view them within here directly as well. And it's going to go ahead and launch that in an entirely separate window. And I can go ahead and see all of the stuff from that video. So very easy to do. Same with these MKV files, same with this video file. So the other way that we could do this is we can create a sync or a backup. And what that's going to do is it's going to automatically do the backups for me based on changes to a particular folder on my computer. So if I go to the sync and backup here, we're going to do sync. We're going to do create a sync task, sync this computer. We're going to go to next. Computer path, I'm going to go ahead and do my exports. So I'm just going to go ahead and select the exports there. And then we're going to do a new folder. We're going to call this one YouTube videos. Confirm that. And we can do the sync direction. So I only wanted to sync the changes of my computer to the NAS so that if I delete files on the computer, it's not going to delete files on the NAS, so we'll keep that one there. But if I do any changes on the NAS, it's not going to affect what's on the computer. If I want to, I can do a two-way sync. So if I do something on one device, it's going to get rid of the item on the other device or rename it or move it, all that stuff, but I only want this to be more of a backup than a sync. So I can go ahead and press next step. We can do a real-time sync, or we can sync it only when we decide to sync it. So I'm going to do real-time, but a manual sync is great as well, especially for things where every once in a while you just want to go ahead and back up a whole bunch of stuff at once. Press next. Now we're going to go ahead and preview. We're going to call this one YouTube exports and confirm it. So now it is going to go ahead and start syncing all of that data, and it's a pretty large folder. That folder currently has 233 gigs of data in it, so it's going to take a long while to sync, but this is a really, really good way to back up important files from your PC based on their folder structure. You can do a whole bunch. You can create as many as you want. You can set them all up to have different settings. I really do like the ability to do this. And I like the ability where you can be super granular if you want to and kind of set things up the way you want. So I'm going to go ahead and suspend the sync so that it's not doing this for the whole time. And we have that done. If I end up using the NAS the way that I'm planning to, which is allowing my family to have a way to back up all their photos and videos, this is going to be extremely handy for that purpose. So let's go ahead and go through the process. So this is just going through the initial steps. It's going to mention that our UGREEN ID, we can use it to log in and through that browser. Press OK. We're going to automatically redirect. And let's call this one, let's change that name up. All right, so now we're on a mobile device. I am connected to a Wi-Fi that does not have access to the LAN that the NAS is plugged into. We're going to go ahead and go to the link that we had set up. And what it's telling me here is to ensure an optimal experience, it wants us to use a PC browser or the UGREEN NAS client on said computer. We're going to go ahead and just trick this into thinking that we're on desktop. So let's go ahead and trick that a little bit here. And now we're able to log in to our device. So if I go ahead and do this, and now we have access. So we're on our desktop, and we have complete access to our device. Now let me go ahead and check it out with the app on the phone and see how that works. So a little bit differently than we did before, on the phone that was on the actual local network, we were able to hit this and it was able to just identify the device. But now we have to go ahead and put in that link ID. So that is the DH2300 Caddac. And now for the username, we just go ahead and put in our username and password, and then we put in our code, and we're connected. So we are outside of the local network. We're able to access everything just the way that we did before on mobile. We can go ahead and check all of our photos. We can do our backups, and we can set up the way that those backups work. So if we go to the tools and we do the photo backup, this is now a separate phone. So we can have it go to a separate album, or I can make it go into the other album that the other phone is also doing. So we can just have everything in one spot if we really want to. And we can set up the backup time range, just as we mentioned before. We have to set up the permissions as always, but a very easy and simple situation to do. And I really like the fact that we can access this remotely. And this is the way that if I do set up this NAS for my family to back up all their stuff, this is the way that they're going to be doing it, because they don't live with me. They're going to be outside my network, being able to send all their stuff in. So that's something to keep in mind. If I'm going to be using this going forward, this is the way that we're going to be using it, and it seems to work pretty well. All right, so now let's talk about some pricing. So the price of my current configuration, regular price, the DH2300 would be about $210, although it's currently on sale for the early bird for $189. And then the drives themselves, regular price about $105, although right now they're currently on sale for $100. So when you put that together, it's about $420 for the 4TB drives and the NAS, which makes it about $105 per terabyte. Regular price, or less than $100 per terabyte when everything's on sale. Now, if we look at Google One, for example, they do not have a 4TB option, but they have the 2TB, and the 2TB is $100 a year for about $50 per terabyte. And if we look at Mega is about $116 or $117 per year, which comes out to about $40 per terabyte. For Microsoft, it's about $100 a year for the personal, but that also comes with Word, Excel, Outlook, and a bunch of other features. For iCloud, it's about $120 a year or $60 per terabyte. And then Dropbox's 2TB option is about $120 a year before taxes, which is about $60 a terabyte. So very quickly, within the first year, obviously the cloud solutions are quite a bit cheaper. But once you get past that 4-year mark, the NAS solution basically ends up becoming a lot cheaper than the rest of these. It's a lot larger than a lot of these in terms of the storage. And I'm sure that if you waited for much better sales on the hard drives, you can really cut down the price on it. And you could probably get this down to probably about $60 per terabyte. You know, for example, these particular drives that I am using, you were able to buy them for $85 instead of the $105 that I'm currently using for the current pricing. So that makes quite a big difference. And again, we're using a 4TB drive. You can find drives at different sizes for a much different price to fit your exact needs. And I do think that over time, the NAS really does end up paying for itself, being able to host all your stuff and do your own things. As always, there will be links down in the description below where you can go ahead and check out the UGREEN DH2300 for yourself. And there will also be a promotion code for 20% off your order. If you do end up using those links, they do help support the channel, and I really do appreciate it. So in the end, I do think that the DH2300 is a really great value and budget device. I think it provides a lot for both people who are maybe less tech savvy, but want to have something quickly that they can set up and basically use it like an iCloud. And maybe they're not comfortable doing too much techie stuff. I really think the UGREEN benefits them and is very simple to set up. But I think UGREEN also does a pretty good job of putting a lot of power in the user's hands if they decide to use it, not making it necessary, but making it an option. So if you do want to do additional stuff and you do want to really ramp up the usage of this device, you can do that as well. It is just a slightly weaker than some of the other products that are out on the market. And that 1 gig port is a little bit of a negative, especially if you're going to be doing stuff like constant video streaming. But otherwise, I think it does a really good job. We've seen in the speed stuff when we were kind of going through it that it does a really good job with that kind of stuff as well. I've really been liking it. I'm going to actually be seeing some of my family this weekend, and I'm going to be proposing this idea to them because my sister had actually recently asked if there's any way that she can not have to pay for iCloud anymore because it's just getting too expensive and she doesn't want to have to buy a phone with more storage. So this might be the solution. I might end up putting this in maybe my parents' house or maybe even my sister's house, and then having the family, they can just use this for all their photo and video backups and kind of lighten up the load on their phones, free up some storage and stuff like that. So we'll see how that goes. I think that's going to be the main purpose of this. Also, backing up raw stuff from YouTube is going to be great. So all of this raw footage that I use for recording all my videos has to go somewhere. Currently, I put it on external hard drives. I can also put it on my Unraid server, but the Unraid server has a pretty good purpose, and it'd be cool to have a dedicated space for just third party storage, or the 3-2-1 rule. So kind of having 3 different places for my stuff in case I ever need it, maybe backing up some important data that I want to have offsite, so that in case something happens here, and this house burns down and all of my drives are all gone, I at least have the important stuff somewhere else and I can recover that. So I think that's also a really good idea for me. But if you have any suggestions or any questions about the device, let me know down in the comment section below. I'd love to know what you guys think. If you have a NAS device currently, I'd love to know what you're using, what you like about it, what you don't like about it. If there's anything that you think the UGREEN would do better than what you currently have, if you think the UGREEN does anything worse than what you currently have, let me know down below. I'm sure UGREEN will also be reading a lot of these comments. I'm really interested in checking out more NAS devices. I want to check out some solid state NAS devices. I want to check out some with some larger bays, because as mentioned, I do love my Unraid server, but I would like to have some kind of device that would be a dedicated NAS. I was thinking about setting up a secondary PC with something like TrueNAS on it and using it just for NAS purposes, just for backups and all that kind of stuff. But we'll see what happens in the future. We'll see what kind of stuff I can get my hands on. I don't really have the money to be purchasing a lot of that stuff right now, so it's just kind of in the brainstorming phase, but I am curious. With all that said though, really do hope you found this video helpful, and if not, I at least hope you found it interesting. If you did, I'd really appreciate it if you like, subscribe. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, let me know down in the comment section below, and I'll try to get to them all as quickly as I can. Big thanks to my Patreon sponsors, and big thanks to you for watching to the end of this video. If you want to see any other videos relating to products and stuff that I'm checking out, or even the server, you can go to check out the playlist right up here. And as always, stay safe out there. I'll see you next time.